Welcome back. You're tuned into Goeiemôre, good morning. South Africa's national bird, the blue crane, is facing a serious threat. The species was recently reclassified from near threatened to vulnerable. Joining me now is Dr. Christie from the Endangered Wildlife Trust and Bradley Gibbons, a field officer working to protect these iconic birds in their natural habitat. A very warm welcome to Goeiemôre, good morning, Bradley and Dr. Christie.
Good morning.
Hey.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Dr. Christie, can you tell us what the reclassification means of the blue crane from near endangered to vulnerable?
So, basically the IUCN Red List works on several categories. And for the blue crane, what happened is in the last assessment in 2015, the population was doing quite well and they didn't meet the criteria to be listed as threatened. But now we are seeing a decline and we project that the decline could continue. So they've reached that threshold of a 30% decline over 3 generations, and they're now listed as vulnerable as a result.
How did your research indicate this, if it looked like the population was actually doing well and now we're at a point where it is more endangered than before?
Yeah, so in South Africa, we have a project called the Coordinated Avifaunal Road Counts. And this is a citizen science project that many people across the country take part in. So what I did during my PhD was analyze this data. And I picked up that there's a 44% decline in the Overberg, where we find most of our blue cranes. And this was the data that we used to change the listing.
Bradley, what methods are used to assess the population of the blue crane, for example?
Yeah, as Christie mentioned, now we use citizen science a lot for this kind of stuff to understand where the birds are at the moment and how they're doing. So, for example, the avifaunal road count that is done, and also fixed route surveys from the public and our own fixed route surveys. We also do aerial surveys across all 3 regions of South Africa. So we mentioned the Western Cape already, Overberg and Swartland, and also the grasslands, as well as the Karoo. So also very important for us, the most important thing is actually breeding site monitoring in our areas to see how many chicks actually will survive until they become adult birds and can fly, because that we need to know what the survival rate is of chicks.
What are the biggest drivers for this decline in numbers? Because we know that the blue crane it's our national bird. We as South Africans should go out of our way to make sure that they are protected.
Howlines are unfortunately our biggest threat for blue cranes, because what happens is the birds are flying at different times of day to like feeding sites, to roost sites, because a lot of them will roost in dams and stuff in nighttime. And then when they're doing the heels in the background, they very often can't actually see the power line, because when for us on the ground it looks like it's visible, but for crane flying it looks like it's basically invisible because of a mountain in the background. So the use of poisons was a big threat back in the 1980s. However, these days there can be accidental poisonings when people are trying to poison other wildlife, but then cranes can be affected because they also will eat the poisons. Habitat loss is also a very big threat, especially in places like the grasslands, where people with the demand for food now, people are applying up to plant items such as maize. And fence entanglement is difficult to describe, but a bird sees a fence and walks through it, and then they become entangled. And then things like, for example, baling twine, when a bird can get it entangled in their feet, and then they can lose a limb or something like that. And breeding disturbance actually happens quite regularly when people are driving in areas where they're breeding birds, and for example, combine harvesters as well, maybe the wrong time of the year. And then livestock as well. You can't believe it, but things like, these things happen when a cow or sheep can be walking through an area where birds are breeding and can even trample eggs. We do have some reports of occasional trade that does occur when birds are taken out the wild as well.
Dr. Christie, my next question is for you, because your research is quite focused on the Western Cape. Why is the Overberg such an important region for the blue crane?
Yeah, so we find the highest densities of blue crane in the Overberg, more than anywhere else in the country. This I think is the reason that this region is so important for blue cranes, is because there's something in this landscape that is working for them. or was working for them, which resulted in their population increasing to the levels that we saw up until 2010. And also the Overberg is classified as an important bird area by BirdLife International, which means that it supports several different bird species, not just blue cranes, but also Cape vultures, southern black corehorns, and several other threatened species.
Bradley, what are some of the things that can be done from a South African citizenship or citizens' perspective that can be we can use to help to make sure that the blue crane is safe?
So what we do, we work a lot with farmers because our landowners and farmers are custodians of birds. The birds are living on basically 99% of privately owned farms. So that's why we work a lot with farmers. And what we do, we get a lot of areas proclaimed as protected areas using what we call a biodiversity stewardship process. Now we talk about nature reserves, but in most cases we call them protected environments, when farmers are protecting the habitat for cranes by making this area declared formally as a protected environment. We've got that commitment for the future. I mean, we know that habitat loss is a big threat, I mentioned a few seconds ago, and we all need food. I need food. So, farming must take place. So we need to also ensure that we can balance the two, the actual livestock farming and with farming for maize and wheat, that it can go in the same way for the benefit of crane conservation in the future. So we basically, habitat conservation is important, and also with the commitment from farmers who really do appreciate in those sort of cases.
Dr. Christie, just to end off, how can people find out more information about your research and about how to get involved in these kind of conservation projects?
Yeah, so you can head over to the Endangered Wildlife Trust website or the International Crane Foundation website, where you can find out more about the work that we're doing. And for those who are interested in joining a citizen science project like the Coordinated Day Before Road Counts, you can go to the website and have a look at the information, and I'll have all the contact details of who you need to contact to get involved.
Thank you so much, Dr. Christie and Bradley. We will put all of that information up on our social media pages. Remember, you can follow us on social media at Goeiemôre, Good Morning. Stay tuned because we'll be discussing your finances with Thys van Zyl right after this. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Goeiemôre, Good Morning.